avoid the play-in. We're in like must-win territory.
Well, you want to avoid it just because you never want to get in that situation where you just got a couple of games that could decide your season, because sometimes anything, it's not quite one and done, but it's similar to that.
And the Warriors have lost.
And they've lost in the play-in before too. So you don't want to be in that position. You also, as an older team, Steph, Jimmy Butler, Draymond, you'd love to get that rest so you don't have to be in the play-in. But when you look at the matchups, I want to avoid OKC, sure. I think a lot of these teams, with all due respect to what the Rockets are doing, you're looking at the Rockets, clearly the Grizzlies now, but we'll see where they end up. But if you get the Rockets in the first round, you feel good, especially one of these veteran teams, about beating them. OKC, again, I'd probably pick OKC against the Warriors, but the Warriors were 2-1 against them this year. And all of those games, Shea played, and they were before Jimmy Butler was a Warrior. So the Warriors are clearly better with Butler. So I think they would feel good about their chances in that. So I'm not going to, write them off if they're in the play-in as far as making a decent run in the playoffs. But you want to avoid it just for the rest as an older team.
So I find the conversation around Golden State and by Golden State interesting because of who it doesn't come from. This is, another season where Draymond Green has written some checks that Steph Curry is going to be obligated to cash. And Draymond, highly confident. Jimmy seems pretty confident. Steph, I'm sure Steph is confident. But Steph hasn't put voice to it the way these other guys have. And I think it is in part because of his personality, but in part because he knows the only shot they have is if Steph is brilliant for 3 rounds to get to the finals. I do not think they are good enough, even if Jimmy gets up another level, to beat any of these teams in the West without Steph being A- Steph. And to beat OKC or the Lakers, I think Steph would have to be A+ Steph. And so that's why I have really hammered home the point. I think they need to avoid the play-in. Steph is 37 years old. And he is also, we saw this year, before they got Jimmy, he was having the worst healthy season he'd had arguably in a decade. Why? Because he was worn down by all the attention on him, all of it. And so the tailbone injury doesn't worry me at all because it's not a soft tissue, it's a bruise, fine. I really think Steph needs the time off. And I really think that they have to somehow thread the needle of making sure Steph is fresh for the playoffs, which might mean sitting him if they have, in a game or two down the stretch, while also avoiding the play-in.
Yeah. Listen, we're kind of overcomplicating things and trying to make things so unique here. Yeah, they're an older team. You want them to not be in the play-in. Not only do you want the extra rest, but you also want the less games that you have to play. So not only do you get the extra rest just in terms of physical time off, but then you also want to be able to play less games, which is arguably probably more important at this point. And it's not one of the same. And, but this idea that they need Steph Curry to be great in order to win. Obviously. So you're going to tell me that the Los Angeles Lakers can get to the Western Conference Finals and get to the championship if LeBron James isn't great? All because of Luka? I mean, the statement is absurd. Of course you need Steph Curry to be awesome. You always need Steph Curry to be awesome. He's the foundation of the Golden State Warriors. So it's just kind of absurd. It's an absurd statement. And it'd be like, of course, now this is Draymond Green, writing checks that Steph has to cash. And Steph isn't talking yet because Steph doesn't talk. It's not his personality. And it is who Draymond is. And you know what? Steph Curry loves Draymond Green. Loves them. They are brothers for life. Stop trying to act like Draymond Green is doing stuff that Steph doesn't, isn't part of. Because believe me, if Steph has the clout, he has the ability to be like, I'm sick of this guy. Can you please stop him? Can you please stop him from being him? Move on from him, whatever it is. He doesn't do that because he knows how valuable someone like Draymond Green is on the court and off the court. Because Steph is a very high IQ player. He's been around. He understands how important a Draymond Green is and how important a Draymond Green was for their success over the years. He knows that. He's not dumb. So stop trying to be like, oh, this is Draymond Green being Draymond Green, and now Steph Curry has to. Just stop. It's a nonsense narrative. Seriously, nonsense narrative. And then saying how Steph Curry has to be great. Obviously. I do believe that they can beat any of the teams in the West. Mainly because of their experience. And you're going up against still younger teams, inexperienced teams, like OKC. OKC is definitely starting to reach the point where it's like, okay, they definitely have a lot more experience than they've had in years past, but still not a ton. Still not even close to Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler for that matter. Playoff basketball is fundamentally different ball. And teams like OKC are still trying to figure it out. They're still trying to figure it out. Whereas the Golden State Warriors already have it figured out. It's not to say that they're going to win or that it's a walk in the park for them, because OKC of course should have the advantage. But it's the same thing when you're always talking about seasoned veterans and experience going up against these younger teams. Can you use your experience to give you the advantage? Can you play a style of ball that limits your deficit athletically and physically because you are older? You are going to be a little bit slower. You are going to be a little bit more banged up in game 2 and 3 and 4 compared to the younger guys who can bounce back a lot easier. So it's all a balance. And from my viewpoint, it's always difficult to try to figure that out in the NBA and in basketball, especially when you're talking about all-time greats like Steph, like LeBron, like KD, etc. Because these are the players who truly can rise to the occasion in the playoffs. And they also deeply understand the difference between a regular season game and the playoffs. They understand deeply to their core the differences. They know the difference between game 1 and game 3, game 6 and game 2, on the road, at home. They understand it deeply. These other younger teams are still figuring it out. They're still figuring it out. Pretty much every team out there is still figuring it out, except for the Warriors, and then I would just say LeBron James in isolation. Because it's not like that Lakers team is filled with, these seasoned, experienced high-level playoff players either. I know Luka's been around, but he's never really proven to really get there quite yet. He's still learning. I think that's pretty clear. So, yeah. I'm interested to see kind of where the Warriors can go from here. I know this is, this game obviously already happened, but I thought it was an interesting discussion because it's not about the game. It's about, the play in itself. And we can see where the current standings are there. They're obviously, out of it technically. And so, yeah, I think it does matter. I think getting hot near the end of the season matters too. Going on a little bit of a run. If they can jump up to 4 or something, I think that could be huge. Again, I'm not predicting that it will happen. But I think going on a little bit of a streak, a little bit of a heater, feeling really comfortable, confident, playing good, being in rhythm, feeling healthy, going into that with a little bit of rest, being able to kind of just watch these games, the 7, 8, 9, 10, kind of sit back, but feeling good, not feeling like you're limping across the finish line just to get out of, the play-in or whatnot. Again, I don't think if they're in the play-in, it would be devastating, especially considering where they'll be. Because it should not be one and done. But I still think that there's just some sort of more momentum building. If they can get up to say, 4 or even 5 for that matter. And at that point, 4 and 5 there wouldn't really be a measurable difference, I guess. Well, I guess technically with home field, home court and stuff like that. But I think in terms of getting up there, would be really, really positive for them, because I think there's enough guys on that team right now that need more of this momentum. I think Jimmy Butler, Steph, etc. They need that less, but I do think there will be like a lot of energizing there. And even someone like a Jimmy Butler, I think, if you get up to like 4 or something, or even 5 for that matter, there's the feeling of like, all right, let's go. And if you do play the Lakers when they're at their freshest, because then it would be right here, you'd be in a fascinating spot. But then that does really beg the question, though, what would be better? If you're really trying to game it, would it be better to have the Warriors play the Nuggets, or would it be better to have them play the Grizzlies or the Lakers? And when do you want to play them? Do you want to play them, the earliest on? Like, it's, I'm not going to get too lost in that right now until things start to get a little bit closer, because I do think things can kind of change. I know there's only so many games left, but, one team goes on a 2-game win streak, the other team goes on a 2-game losing streak, and poof, everything changes. So you just don't know at this point. But when I kind of look at all of these other teams, I see a team like the Warriors that they can beat anyone, but in a 7-game series. And how long have you been playing? I think it'll be easier for them and it's tough because LeBron's in the same boat, but it'll be easier to play the Lakers earlier on in the playoffs compared to later on in the playoffs. But if you play them later on in the playoffs, I believe LeBron James will also have a lot of wear and tear and be exhausted, but so will Steph. So, it's interesting. I think the playoffs, because of how everything is shaping up, is kind of sloppy, and I mean that in a positive way, actually. I think the sloppiness and the uneasiness of when some of these teams could play each other is actually going to be a legitimate variable, because we have such a mix and match with various ages of some of these key teams that I actually really find it fascinating, and I think it'll legitimately play an impact here. I mean, who knows? The Suns can get into the play-in, and again, if the Warriors lose, and they can potentially be playing the Suns and Steph, KD, like, it's just there's some interesting stuff here. There really is. The more you look at it, so I'm excited for it, and it's funny too, because even the play-in, I used to be anti that, and now I'm definitely pro that, because it definitely adds something extra to all of this. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Golden State Warriors? How important do you think it is for them to avoid the play-in? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.